Okay, so today's content is creating ribbon modifications that follow the workbook. So this is it's a really powerful thing to be able to have some code in the workbook that you need to give to someone else, and to be able to put buttons in the ribbon to be able to activate that code. It's not especially easy to do. I'll give you a little bit of background on this. So that's the bad news. The bad news is today is not the easiest thing we've ever done. The good news is it's not the easiest thing we've ever done, which means once you know how to do this, you'll be among the few people who can do this, because other folks are like, yeah, we just don't have any idea how to do it. So let's go ahead and get a couple of things downloaded first. So let's get this workbook downloaded. This is like the workbook, the census data, where we built the charts on it. I think this is from a prior semester, but you'll recognize this file. So let's go ahead and get that one downloaded. And back before 2007, there was no ribbon in Microsoft Office. There was just like a menu system. And that menu system, we had complete control over with VBA. We could add new menus into it. We could put new menu items on it. You could like click a button and it could totally change the menu structure. In 2007, when they introduced that ribbon, the Office Fluent Ribbon interface, there was no way to use VBA to modify the ribbon. And we thought, well, it's probably coming. No, it's not. You don't do ribbon modifications with VBA. We have to build the ribbon modification by hand into the workbook, and then we can have them invoke VBA, but we don't we don't change the ribbon on the fly with VBA. So today is going to be learning a little bit about XML. So XML, Extensible Markup Language. It's kind of like HTML that we've seen. So that's what we're going to work with. So, but first, we need a little background. Again, prior to 2007, the Excel file format was a proprietary file format. It was a binary file structure that Microsoft didn't publish to the world how these files were made. It was just, here's an Excel file, and if you want to do something with this file, you better open it in Excel. Well, some smart people figured out how to duplicate that file structure anyway. And so, other people were creating Excel files, and the world was generally a better place because of it, because you could have, your web server download data already built in an Excel file, and that was nice. Then in 2007, when there were major changes in Microsoft Office, Microsoft was like, you know what, we're going to make this file structure that we use, not just for Excel, but for Word and PowerPoint and everything, we're going to make it an open standard. So anyone who wants to create a file according to this standard will be able to do it. And the way they did it is actually kind of mind-blowing. Now, I don't want you to try to do this along with me. I just want you to watch and understand what we're about to see, because it is not what you might ever expect. So here, I've just downloaded our row highlighter assignment. This is an assignment that we did towards the beginning of this semester. Have I already unblocked it? I've already unblocked it. It's an XLSM file. And you'll remember that most of our assignments have like a ribbon modification built into them. And so we're going to take a look at it here, but I want you to understand what this file structure is. In 2007, when I was trying to figure out the implications of the new interface for teaching this class, so all right, we're going to do it for modifying, doing the menus. And so I did some research to figure out, how can you? Good news, you can modify the ribbon. I thought that's great. I expected to do with VBA. I was wrong. But as I read the documentation from Microsoft about how to put a ribbon modification into a workbook, I was like, you're kidding me. You have to do that? It's hideous. Now, I'm going to show you the way they told us to do it in 2007, and then we're going to use a program that someone else wrote that really streamlines this. So this is not as bad as it's going to be, but the first thing to realize is that this file structure for Microsoft Excel is actually a compressed folder of a bunch of XML files. Now, when I say compressed folder, show me on a scale of 0 to 5 how comfortable you are with that idea. 5, 5, 5, 5, 3. So a few of you are down here in the 3. The idea back back in the early days of computing, we just had files. Like they were like, and then in the 1980s, we got folders that we could put files in. We called them directories back then. And from time to time, we had a need to be able to take a whole bunch of files together and move them somewhere else. And moving thousands of files individually was like, even if you could do one statement that would move them, but the operating system would move them a file at a time, there was more opportunities for some kind of a failure to happen. And so the idea was, what if we could just take all those files and put them into one file? And then we don't have to move one file, that would be better. And that's like kind of the beginning of where we get a compressed folder today. Then some smart folks said, oh, you know what? There's a lot of overlap. Like when we put all these files together, there's a lot of duplication in these. And because there's some duplication, we can do some algorithms to kind of compress that data down and make it smaller. And so that's what a zipped archive is. It is a bunch of files put together. It's what a compressed folder is. You used to call them a zip archive. It's a compressed file. It's a bunch of files put into a single file and then shrunk with a compression algorithm. And the extension for those is just .zip. In fact, I think I downloaded a zip file here. And we can see it has a .zip file on it. It's a zipped folder. Now, that is, strange as it may seem, that is exactly the same file format of an Excel workbook. An Excel workbook is a zip archive. It is a compressed folder that has a different extension on it. And so I'm going to do something that you normally don't do. I'm just going to change the extension on this. In fact, because of what we're going to be doing today, do we need it? Maybe we don't. Well, if we need that, we'll get there. I'm going to change that from XLSM to ZIP. Now, it's almost never a good idea to change the extension of a file, because that extension tells the operating system how this file is going to work. But we are saying, no, don't try to open this with Excel. Treat this like a compressed folder. And it says, that's nuts. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. Okay. It's an Excel file. I just changed the extension. But now I'm going to double click that file and it is going to open as a compressed folder. The only reason this works is because that is the underlying file structure that these Excel files are. You can't do that with any other. I mean, it's not like you can do that to any kind of file. Now, let's see what I'm going to do. I'm going to open this. I just want to open this file first. So let's see that zip. I wanted to open the file before I renamed it. So let me go ahead and name this back to XLSM. Okay, so this was like the row highlighter assignment. I just want you to notice it says Worcester a bunch of places here. So in this data, it says Worcester, and it's got, some duration for which we needed some kind of a translator. All right, I'm going to come into my zip archive, and in fact, I'm going to extract it. So I'm going to right click and choose extract all. And it has just made an extracted version of this. No longer a compressed archive. It's no longer a zip folder. It's a regular folder. Okay, so I'm coming in here, and I'm just going to show you like all the data for this Excel workbook is right in here in these files. Here's Excel, and in that there's worksheets. There's one worksheet here. What happens if I double click that? It opens where I don't want it to open. Let me see if I can open this in code. There we go. So this is the data of that worksheet. And so in looking in like specific cells and columns, if you really want to edit this, you can. We can come and change numbers here. But that's all the numbers are held on the sheet. But strings are held in this file here called shared strings. So if I were to look for Worcester here, I could like change this XML file from Worcester to Provo. Save that file. So now you can come back here and like take those files and send them back to a compressed folder and call it data.xlsm. Oops, data.xlsm. Like I extracted that file, I changed one of the files in the compressed folder, and then I recompressed it back into a file. That's now an Excel file that I can open, and it opens up here, and all that stuff that said Worcester before now says Provo, right? So that's like the underlying file structure. I don't know why that would ever be useful to you. Like someday you've got a presentation, you don't have Excel on your computer, the computer that it's on, but you have to change something in it. You could go change it. That's nuts. But that structure is where the ribbon modification happens. So you see this folder right here, custom UI, custom user interface. In a workbook that doesn't have a ribbon modification on it, that folder just isn't there. And so like the steps are, take your file, extract it, add a folder called custom UI. In that folder, make one that says custom UI XML. And then that's the file where the ribbon modification is, right? It says, here's, inside this, we're talking about the ribbon. And in that ribbon, there's a set of tabs. And in that, we're going to make a new tab. It's going to be called, the label is going to be assignment. And it's going to have a button group called homework, and it's going to have a button on it that says highlight row. Like that information is where this thing comes from. So, it's like the instructions that Microsoft gave us for how to modify the ribbon was this: extract that file, go modify the file structure, put these files in place. It wasn't long after that someone wrote a program to do that for you. Now, you're still going to have to work with the XML, but you don't have to do the extraction and the folder creation. It does that for you. And so that's going to be our first step, is to get that installed. And that's what this link is here to the Office Ribbon X editor. So we're going to follow that link, and we're just going to scroll down to where it says assets. And we're going to pick one of these to install. Now, this is only going to work on Windows. So if, this is probably the safest one to do. If you want to install the software, it's just a little small program. It's going to install. Download this one. I can't install on this computer, but this one here will let me just download the files that are executable. I don't have to install it. I can just use the files that are here. So I would pick one of these two to download. And actually, it might take a while. Those are kind of big files. Has anyone downloaded these yet? Are they taking a while to download, or are they downloading pretty quickly? Oh, okay, good. I've already downloaded this one. So here it is, Ribbon X editor. If you download the one that installs, just go ahead and go through the installation process. It's a normal installation process. I am going to take this one that I downloaded and extract it so that I can just run the file separately. So I'm going to extract all. Extracting. We want to make sure that we can all get this editor up, and then we'll move on. So here's these files just extracted. I am just going to sort these by type and double click the Office Ribbon X editor, Office Ribbon X editor. And that then brings up this editor right here. Okay. So one way or another, I want to see you have this program running on your computer if you're going to try to follow along. And I'm coming to, if you have a question about getting there, I'm coming to help. Got it up, excellent. I guess I could go back and show the file name you want to click on. If you're just extracting the one that doesn't install. but you do need to make sure you extract that folder. You can't just download the zip folder, go into it and run it. You have to extract it. Okay, any questions? Show me on a scale of 0 to 5 about how many more minutes you think it's going to take to get you there. Like your one or two, several zeros out there. Any questions? Okay, looks like it's going okay. All right. While you may be doing that, I'm going to go ahead and just review for us like the file that we're going to be working on. So I've downloaded that chart ribbons file. And so let's see, Alt F11. So in module 2, we have something called clear data, which deletes the charts and clears the data that we've put. Remember how this works? We choose a different county and it brings that county into my set of data to compare. So I just brought in page and it brought in the data for page. I forget what the hotkey was that made a chart. Let me go ahead and clear the data and we'll start again. So again, you don't have to do this along for this, just reminding you what we're going to be dealing with. So I pick a county, it shows the data for that county. And there's a chart, make chart, some hotkey, Control-Shift-C. Oh yeah, Control-Shift-C then runs the code that builds the chart to compare whatever we have up. So I would like to be able to, trying to teach my users to use the hotkeys is going to be more difficult than if I could just give them some kind of a ribbon that has the tools in it. So that's where we're headed for this. So I've got my charts ribbon file. I'm going to make sure it's closed because what I have to do is this other program is going to tear that file apart, modify it, and put it back together. I can't do that while it's open in Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and close that workbook, and then I'm going to open that workbook again using the Office Ribbon X editor. So I'm just going to click on the open button, and I'm going to browse and find that same file. Not in documents, in downloads for me, chart ribbon. I'm opening the same one. And there we go. Opening it up. It doesn't look like much. It just shows right here that it's open. This is not letting me do anything with the Excel part of it. It's only letting me play with the ribbon. Okay. Anyone saying I'm not quite there? Need a hand? Do you have the ribbon editor open? Yeah. Just click on the little open icon here and then browse to find that file. Okay. Once it's open, we are going to select it and then choose insert. So insert has several things that we can insert. These first two here are going to be the one that actually builds the right folder and puts the file for you to hold your XML in. So when they first invented this, it was first released in 2007, there were some things that were a little bit quirky about it. They're like, you know what, we want to change that. And so they modified it for 2010. So for a short time, it was like, oh, if we've got people using 2010, we better make sure we build this custom ribbon with the one that can be read by. If we have people using 2007, we want to make sure that they can read the ribbon modification. So make sure you use the 2007 version. The 2007 version would go forward. Anything could read it. But there were some new features added in 2010 that you didn't have access to in the 2007 format. So you might if you're starting from scratch, you might just insert this one. But fortunately, there's some sample XML here, and one of them is called Excel, a custom tab. And this will actually put in a 2007 style ribbon modification, so which is totally adequate for the stuff we're doing today. You've got to do some pretty advanced stuff before you're thinking, oh, I've got to have the 2010 plus one. So I'm going to go ahead and put that example in, and it is going to write in this example. So yeah, fortunately, we didn't have to write this out. I mean, that used to be the instructions. Make a file that has this in it. So let's just take a look at what's here, and we're going to get rid of a bunch of this and customize this to our needs. So again, this is a custom user interface modification. We're changing the ribbon. Is there something else you can change besides the ribbon? I don't know. It seems like it's set up to do that. I don't know anything you can change besides the ribbon, but this is happening in the ribbon. Then here's our set of tabs. Now, inside this set of tabs, we are now creating a new tab. This tab is called, it has an ID. Everything that we make has to have an ID, a unique identifier on it. Every XML tag we make. So this is starting here with tab, ending with /tab. Everything between it is part of this tab that we're building. It's got a label on here. I don't want the label to say Comtoso, whatever that means. Instead, I'm going to make this say chart tools. And then here it says to insert it after tab home. That's going to be, here's my home tab, and it's going to say, put this right there. Your users do not want you to do that. Like, they're used to having their tabs in their specified order. So don't do that. This is an example showing you could do that. I'm just going to get rid of that. And if I don't tell it where to put it, it will put it all the way at the end of my ribbon. You put that in the middle of your users' ribbons, they will never see it. They'll be like, yeah, I can't see what you did. They just don't look there. All right. Now, this next part here, what this is doing, this is bringing in an existing group. So by groups, like when you're looking at an Excel workbook, I don't have any of my Excel workbooks open. Like on that ribbon, you've got like different segments, and at least on the Windows version of Excel, there's a little name underneath the group. And what this is saying is, I'm making a new ribbon, but I want to bring in some existing groups. So if you have like a process that you do that you find yourself going from tab to tab to tab a lot, you could say, you know what, I'm going to make a custom tab that just brings all the groups onto one tab that I need to use for this process. And that's what these are. So it takes a little work to find out what the IDs are. This ID MSO stands for ID for Microsoft Object or Microsoft Office Object or something. And if you can find out what those codes are, you can kind of bring those in. So I'm going to leave the clipboard one there, but I'm going to get rid of the next one. I'm just going to have one of those, just the one clipboard example. Now, you'll notice that our tab one is containing something else. And so it has a tab tag that starts and it ends with /tab. This one doesn't have anything contained in it. And so there's no corresponding /group tag that goes with it. Instead, we say, hey, there's nothing in it. So we put the / right on the tag that opens it. And that says that's a unary tag. Nothing inside this tag, that's the whole thing. And we've got 3 more that are just like it down here, bringing in different groups. I want to get rid of those too. One is enough to show you that you can bring in an existing group from a different tab. Now, this next one now, this one says group ID MSO. I'm identifying an existing Microsoft Office group. This one has an ID which signals to Microsoft or signals to Excel. This is a custom tab. This is a brand new tab. Don't go to try to find this somewhere else. We are making it right here. Custom group, it just has to be unique. I'm going to leave that with custom group. And the label, I'm going to put here chart tools. And let me just go ahead and take this down to just one button. So I've gotten rid of all these buttons except for one. Okay, so on this group that's going to have a label of chart tools, I've got a button here. The ID is custom button 1. I think I'm going to make the ID of this, let's call this make chart. And the label, I'm going to say make chart. Size is large. There are 2 sizes, large and normal. The other option is normal besides large. Reminds me of like the way they grade olives in this country. You know what the smallest size of an olive you can buy? You don't buy a can of olives. What's the smallest size called? Medium. No, medium is the smallest one. It goes up from there. Medium, large, extra large, colossal. Like those are all sizes of olives. So we have large and normal. On action is the name of a VBA sub-procedure that you want to run when the user clicks on the button. And so I'm going to call this X make chart. I have a slight memory that we actually, the one that is there already is already called make chart. I'm going to call this X make chart just so it doesn't accidentally step on the toes of the other one. Now, this is a Microsoft Office image. So if I can find the identifier for an image that is going to be a decent image to go with, I can just go ahead and do that. And that's the next link that we have on our blog for today. So here's a PDF file that has the names of the images for the tabs. And this is from 2010. So they look a little bit different now, but they're generally the same. And here's one called chart insert. That's nice. I'm not sure that's the best image, but that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm just changing that from bold to chart insert. And that's going to tell it to put that icon onto this button. All right, this is enough to get us going. 2 things that I want to do at this point. I want to point out that there's a tool right here called validate. And anytime you're like editing XML by hand, XML is really picky. It doesn't really care about spacing, but it cares that you've got all of your tags and your slash symbols in there and everything. I'll click validate and it'll tell me if my XML is well formed. If not, hopefully it gives some information about what's wrong. So let me take off this group tag and try to validate. Yeah, it gives me a little error down here. Group tag starts, but then it doesn't finish when it's expected to. So validate looks good. And then the second one I'm going to click on is this one right here, generate callbacks. This is going to look over my ribbon modification and it's going to find every action on action and it's going to make a little VBA stub for me. Now, Microsoft is very clear about you are not allowed, they're okay with you like modifying the structure of a workbook this way, but you are not allowed to inject VBA into a workbook. I mean, that would be a security nightmare. And so this tool simply can't put this VBA into the workbook for us. And so what it does is it says, you're probably going to want this code. You can copy it here, and then you can paste it into VBA, but it can't modify the VBA from here. I'm going to copy that, and I'll close this, and then I'll save my workbook. I'm going to save this here, and I'm going to close. File, close, close current document. I'll leave that editor open because we're coming back to it here in just a second. But now I should be able to open up that workbook again, and that ribbon should be there. There's my chart tools tab in my ribbon. It's got the clipboard group that we brought in, and it's got my chart tools with one button. If I click on it, it's going to tell me you can't run this thing called XMakeChart. It just doesn't exist. So now we're going to go paste that in. So back to my code, and I'm going to go ahead and work here in module 2, which is where we have the rest of our procedures. And I'm going to put it at the top. Underneath option explicit, I'm just going to paste in that callback. The thing that we need here is that it has to have a reference to the control that was clicked on, because when the ribbon calls this macro, it's sending a reference to the button that was clicked on. And that's how we receive it. So in fact, let me just do here debug.print. Control, control .id. I'm really not sure what to do with the context of the tag, but the ID will let me know which one was clicked. Now that that's there, open up my immediate window. And if I click on that, it's just, all it's doing is printing the ID of the button that was clicked. So what that means is that I could set up one procedure here. Instead of calling it make chart, we could have one here that's called like handle ribbon click. And it could look at the control that got clicked on and decide what to do. So it could just, they could all call exactly the same one. And that's the way that a lot of people like to set up their ribbons. I'm going to just set up a separate one for each button that we're going to put on here. And all we're going to have this do is it's just going to call the make chart macro. So that's it. Done. And so now, I'm going to go ahead and maximize this, clear off my charts. And I should be able to, let me add on another make chart should now run that code. Okay, how many of you were able to make that happen? One? A couple of you, you're there? All right, a couple more things to do. Next one is, let's go ahead and build for delete chart, and we'll add another group to do one for clearing the data as well. So I'm going to close my workbook, file, save, and close, file, close. And I'm going to reopen that in the Office ribbon editor. File, open that same file. It's interesting here, it's got reload on save. That's kind of new. I guess that's designed to allow you to leave this open, and when you save your other workbook, I would still be nervous to have that same file open in two places simultaneously. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole group. And then this one, instead of chart tools, we'll call it data tools. I can't have the same ID on any two tags. So I'll call this one, maybe I'll call this one data group. I'll go call my other one chart group. I could leave it custom group, that would be okay. But I'm calling one data group, I might as well name the other one appropriately. So chart tools, data tools. Instead of make chart, I'll call this one ID clear data. Put a corresponding label. On action, X cleared data. And then I'll want an image for something that looks like clearing data. Go back and take a look at my document. You search for delete on this page. Delete a form record. Delete cells. Delete cells looks like a pretty good one. So I'll give the chart MSO delete cells. Okay, so I've got that one set up, but I would like to also make one for clearing the charts. So I'm making now another button in my chart group, just copying that line. ID, instead of make chart, call it clear charts. I'll give it a corresponding label. X clear charts. Now, instead of just trying to pick another icon here, I'm going to say, you know what, let's bring in a custom icon. So there are hundreds of icons built into Office, and you might think, wow, there's something close to anything I might possibly want. No. Like you'll look through them all and you go, none of those work for me. And so let's go find an icon. So you can Google where you can get an icon. And I'm going to go to flat icon for this one. So just go to flaticon.com or like any icon site, or just Google icon. And then I'm going to search for delete chart. This is where I found one. I think last time I taught this, that was a pretty good one. And here's a couple that look like deleting a chart. Like there's 3 of them here that I'd be happy with any of these 3. I guess I'm going to choose this one. And like I'm choosing one that's deleting a chart, but as long as you get an icon, you'll get the feeling for this. I'm going to download it, PNG, premium download. I can pay for this, or I can, let's just say I can do it free with attribution. Yeah, you must attribute the author. Great, we're going to attribute the author. So I'm downloading that. Hey, remember you got to attribute the author. Let me copy the attribution link. Just going to paste that so I don't lose it. So it looks like they want us to attribute report icons created by Plastic Donut. Great. So we'll be sure to put that onto our workbook somewhere. But I've downloaded the file that I need. Oh, but it's kind of surprising it didn't let me choose the size. I kind of expected it to let me choose the size. So let's go, I'm going to go see what it downloaded. That's beautiful, but it's way too big. I really want a 32 by 32, 32 pixels by 32 pixels. It'll probably scale, but it won't look really good. So I'll go ahead and just use this one. But to get it crisp on this size, I'd want 32 by 32. All right, so now that I have that file, report.png, I'm going to bring that into my ribbon modification. Remember, the Excel file format is a zip archive of other files. So I'm literally going to put this image into that zipped folder. It's not a link to the image. The image doesn't have to go with the workbook. It will be a part of the workbook. And so I'll come back to my insert menu, and I'm going to choose icons. And then I'm going to go find that report.png file. And here it is. Now, report's not a really great name for this. And so I'm going to right click it and change the ID to be remove chart. So that ID is how I'm going to refer to this image through my code. So I found the icon, I inserted the icon, and now I just have to refer to it on the button that I want it to show on. So instead of image MSO, I take off the MSO and I put the ID in there, remove chart. Go ahead and validate my XML. Looks well formed. Could generate the callbacks. I guess I will. Copy those callbacks. I'm ready to save and close. File close. And now I'm ready to reopen in Excel. So now my ribbon has my chart tools has the 2 buttons, my data tools. How does that look? And that actually looks pretty good. Did a really good job scaling that PNG file. All right. Well, I guess just so I can be a good boy, I'm going to make a sheet and I'm going to call it image attribution. Don't think they're expecting that this is really going to go into an Excel workbook, but I'm just going to do what they asked me to do. Oh, and I still have the, yeah, so I just deleted my callbacks off my menu by doing that, off my clipboard. But fortunately, I pasted them somewhere else first. And they're really easy to copy, so maybe we'll just pull them from scratch. All right, back to my code, Alt F11. And I just need two more of these. I'll just copy that. And one was called clear chart and one was called clear data. So I'll just change the names and I'm in good shape. That's all those callbacks were generating for me. Clear data, I'll have it called clear data. And then what was my clear charts one called? It's called delete charts. And that should now have all that functionality built into my workbook. Clear data. Add some more counties to compare. Make some charts. Clear some charts, clear the data. It's delightful. What do you want to see? Just got the code showing here. Anything else you need to see to get your example working? Okay, so now that ribbon modification is a part of the workbook. And as I mentioned earlier, this is something that like very few people know how to do. So when you do something like this, like on your internship, like you get noticed. So that's just neat. Okay, any other questions on ribbon modification? So I want to point out that anything you can see in the ribbon, you can do in the ribbon. So if I come back to the home tab and I've got like these drop downs in the ribbon, that's all stuff that you could do. It's not straightforward, but it's possible. So if you're thinking, man, I really need something like this in the ribbon, that's all possible. You can use VBA to you can't create new tabs and like new groups, but you can like change the visibility. So if you have somebody say during some circumstances, I want that one to be showing and not showing, VBA can do those kinds of changes, but it can't create new objects in the ribbon. Okay, the next topic for today is how to make an add-in. So you may remember back to the beginning of the course when we installed the Atlas, the grader, the thing that grades your homework. It's an add-in that was written in VBA and then just produced as an add-in. So it'd be good for me to think of, seems like I knew an example to do that would actually make sense to make an add-in. I can't think of what it is. So let's just go ahead and build one from scratch. So we are going to start with a brand new blank workbook. And does anyone have a tool that they would like to have accessible to them as just like you could install it as an add-in? Oh, so let me kind of back up as to why you might do this. So if you had some code that you wanted to have always available to you, where would you put that? Like it's like every time you open up your copy of Excel and you wanted to have that code available, where does that code go? That's right. You put it in your personal macro workbook, and that's just available every time you open up your copy of Excel. Now, so like you could, if you got a buddy who wants your code, you could copy it out as a text file and say, go put this in your personal macro workbook and it'll be available. But that's not a very clean way to distribute your code to someone else. And that's exactly what an add-in is. So an add-in is like a personal macro workbook that will open because you install the add-in. So each time you open Excel, when it's installed, it will open up that, functionality. So I'm just trying to think of what might be something that we would want to put in here. I guess like an add-in that I would love to have is like, like to know how long it is till quitting time. So I gotta have a tab in my Excel that I can just click on to know how close it is to quitting time. So let's just go ahead and build that. So I've got brand new workbook here. Control or Alt F11, get to my code. And I'll insert a module in this workbook. So book 1, insert module. Sub quitting time. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is make this ready to be called directly by my ribbon. So I'm just going to put into it control as iRibbon control. And message box, MSGBOX. And then let's just ask for a date difference, date diff. So the current time is going to be now. Interval string, let's see, no, interval string. So I'm going to do this in minutes. I think N shows me minutes. Let's do it in hours. I'll do hours. The date is now. And then how do I get to 5 o'clock? How do I calculate 5 o'clock today? So if I picked up the current date and then just added 5 o'clock PM or 1700, 1700. Convert that to a date. Yeah. So the difference between now and the number of hours between now and 1700 today is 3. I don't really like hours because I was hoping it would give me a fractional hour. That's not precise enough for me. M is for months. It is 0 months until 5 o'clock today. N is minutes, 129 minutes until, excellent. So now I'm going to make that expression be my message. That many concatenated with minutes until quitting time. Okay. So an add-in is just a macro-enabled workbook that loads up when the add-in's installed. Like once you install that, every time you open Excel, it opens that workbook. You have access through your code to all the worksheets that are on there, but those worksheets are invisible, just like your personal macro workbook. It doesn't show. I don't think you could actually tell your personal Mac workbook to be visible. I don't think you can tell an add-ins workbook to be visible. So the user can't go on there and play with the sheets, but you could access them through the code. We're not really going to accessing the sheets here, but you realize it's a workbook that you have access to the data in. So now I'm going to put a ribbon modification onto this workbook that will run this code. And if I make this optional, I can run it from here just to check it. OPTIONAL. So this is an optional argument. So I should be able to call quitting time here. And it says 127 minutes. Looks like I need a space in there. Great. Right, I'm going to save this as a macro-enabled workbook. I'll call it quitting time. And close it, because I need to go put the ribbon modification in. So go back to my Office ribbon editor, open. Uh-oh, I lost quitting time. Where did I put it in my documents? Quitting time. Select the file, insert sample XML, Excel a custom tab. This one I'm going to take down to just the custom tab itself with a single button. Minutes to go. And it seems like I should be able to find some kind of a clock icon. Clockwise. That's the only time it says clock is on those two. Oh, there's one. View all proposals. Looks a little bit like a clock. Just quickly see if there's one I like better. Oh yeah, this is better. Header footer, current time insert. Awesome. And again, you don't have to get the particular one. It'll work with any icon. And on action, shoot, what did I call it? Did I call it? Forgot what it was. Was it quitting time? Blast. Called it quitting time. Okay, I've got my IDs are okay here. Oh, I don't want the label Contoso. I'm going to call it time for the tab. I've got a label for the tab. I've got a label for the group. I've got a label on the button. Got an action for the button and the image. Validate. I don't need to generate the callback, so I've already written the callback, so I'll save and close. Reopen it in Excel. Oh, I forgot to take off the thing that tell it to go after the home. So it's actually now right after my home tab. Minutes to go. 123 minutes till quitting time. Okay, so at this point, just a workbook. Now I want to make this into an add-in. Here's how you do it. File, save as. All you have to do is say, I want to save this as an add-in. Now, this is actually like a publication step. So once I make the add-in, I don't ever go and edit that add-in. If I want to edit my add-in, I go back to the original workbook that is the source for the add-in, edit that workbook, and then save it as an add-in again. So I'm going to find XLAM. Let me know if I passed it. I think I missed it. Oh, there it is. Add in XLAM. Excel add-in macro. I don't know what it stands for. Maybe Excel add-in macro. Now it's trying to put it like in the place where my add-ins normally live. And that's okay. I'm going to put it there. It turns out that if you put the add-in in the location where Excel's add-ins are, it will like stay around. But if you put it like in your on your desktop or something, for whatever reason, like several times, it'll stick around for a few times when you open Excel, then you'll open Excel, it'll just be gone. And you'll have to go and put it in again. But this should be a good place for it. So I'll click Save. And now I'll close this workbook. And I'm going to install the add-in. So come back to any other workbook and choose File, Options, Add-ins. And then Manage Excel Add-ins down here. I'll click on Go. And there's quitting time right there. I'll say OK. And now I always have my quitting time button available on any worksheet that's open. Brand new workbook. My quitting time functionality is right there. So that would allow you to like kind of build a suite of tools that you could share with someone else as like in a real official way for doing an add-in. Okay. I know it's going to break your hearts, but we are done 15 minutes early. Any questions? Okay, our last class is going to be on Wednesday. We're talking about automating Solver. Your last thing to do in this class is the final exam. There's a study guide similar to the midterm study guide published in the Learning Suite schedule. It's available anytime during the final exam period in the testing center. I guess that's it. Thanks for coming. I will see you on Wednesday. Class dismissed.